Hello guys, welcome back to another tutorial. Hit the bell icon button so that you don't miss out any tutorial.
Let's talk about what React is again. It's a popular JavaScript library, and we're using it to create front-end applications and interactive user interfaces. And if you remember, React is fast. It's one of the reasons why it's so popular. And it's because it's so efficient. It updates and it renders just those right components where your data is changing. So if a user is clicking on a particular button in one component, that's the only part of the application that's going to update. That's why it's so much faster. Components, those are the most important parts of React. It's how you build your application. And you use those components for all the different elements on your page. Components will also use the render method to show the data on the browser. And we are going to use a syntax called JSX. JSX stands for JavaScript XML. It's an XML-like code for the elements, and it's really easy to read and to write. So here's an example of the same function written with JSX and then written without it. And if you compare the two, you can see that the one not using JSX is much more cumbersome, a lot more code. It's just so much harder to write and really to read through. And we learned that there are two types of components, and many times you'll hear people refer to these in different ways. So here are 4 of the ways that I have noticed people use. We've got stateful and stateless, smart and dumb, container versus presentational, and then class versus functional. And the ones on the left side are the class, the container, smart, and stateful. Those are the components that have state, and they have a lifecycle method. And then the ones on the right are the ones that don't have the state, and they are used to accept the props and display JSX. So in our project, in all of our projects, we've used both kinds. And in our next project, we're going to use the parent component. It's going to have the class is going to be a class component, and the children components are going to all be functional. Props. So we use props to pass data around from component to component and then render that data out to the browser. Once that data is brought to the stateful component, it can trigger state changes. And then we can use this.state. The name of the prop inside the render method to display the new data to the browser. And here's an example of, we have a class component and we have a functional component, and it kind of shows how the props work. So in the functional component up here at the top, think of this as the child component, and we have the props.temperature, props.humidity, and then what we're going to do is pass up those props to the parent component. The initial state is an empty string, and then the state is in the return, it's in the render, I mean, and we grab that information by saying this.state.temperature. So we're grabbing the props temperature by saying this.state.temperature, and then we're grabbing the humidity props by saying this.state.humidity. And finally, we're going to be using an API to fetch data for free from a source called openweathermap.org. And we're going to request our data in a JSON format with specific endpoints. For example, an endpoint called temperature, an endpoint called description, endpoint called humidity. And those are the things that we're going to be outputting on our weather app. So here's a picture of what our final app will look like. It's got just a little bit of styling. And then the user is going to come along and input a city, input a country, and then they're going to click on Get Weather. And when they do that, when they change the state, we're going to be grabbing that information from the API, and this is what they would see. So without further ado, let's get started. Hey everyone, let's take a quick tour of the completed weather app that we're going to create. Right now we're in the app.js as the parent component, and as you can see it has a class component, and our state, our initial state, has all these properties that are empty right now. So we're going to be grabbing all of these things from our API. And we're going to need to get an API key, and you can get it for free, and I'll show you how to do that when it's time. And then we're going to create a get weather function to target those button values. When the user puts in their city and their country, we need to target those values. We'll need to put in our prevent default for the default behavior on events. And then we're going to do our API call, and we're going to fetch the data. And then we're going to see that the state changes with our this.setState. And here are all of the properties that we're going to be grabbing from the children components, the child components. Then we have finally have our else statement to handle any error in case the user doesn't fill out the input fields. Then here's our render, and we'll be grabbing we're going to be creating 3 child components. So we're going to be creating a heading component. So here it is in the render. We're going to be creating a form component, and this is where we're going to be getting that get weather function that we created. And then we're going to have our forecast child component, and this is where we do that this.state.temperature and pass in the props from that child component. So that's our app.js, that's our parent component. And our heading component's really small. It's going to be a functional component. It's just going to render out a couple of H1 and H3. Then our form component is going to render out just the part where the inputs, where the user inputs their city and their country. And we're going to have our onSubmit button. And then our forecast child component is going to be where we grab the properties from our API. So there you have it. And then we're going to do a little bit of styling and make it as nice as we can in the time that we have. Let's go ahead and check out what it looks like in the browser. So here's what it looks like, and let's go ahead and choose a city. So I'm going to choose New York, and the country is United States, and I click on Get Weather, and we get looks like the conditions are light rain. We got a little rainy icon. We have pressure. Humidity is 83. Temperature's almost 70 degrees. And it gives us our location of New York in the United States. So that's what it's going to be when we are finished. So why don't we, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to VS Code, and we're going to start our terminal and our integrated terminal, and we're going to begin our create React app, and then clean it up so we can get rid of the logo and all those things that we got rid of in our last 2 projects, and then we'll get started. All right, I'll see you in a minute. All right, I like to always start on my desktop and just start a new folder. So I'm going to right click and begin a new folder, and I think I'm going to call this one forecast. So forecast, and now I'm just going to set it aside. Remember, don't use a capital letter for the title of your folder, because create React app doesn't like that. All right, now I'm going to go into VS Code, and I'm going to open the folder, and find it. There it is, forecast. Go ahead and select it. And then I'm going to get into the integrated terminal. Get rid of my welcome page. Okay, as soon as it's finished loading, I'm going to get into my integrated terminal and we're going to create React app. And then in this particular folder, and then we'll clean it up. All right, so I'm going to hit terminal, new terminal. All right. So I'm going to type in npx create -react -app dot. That'll install it into the correct folder. And it takes a little while, so I'm going to go ahead and pause, and I'll be back when it's done. Okay, well, we have it installed. All right, first thing I'm going to do is hit, I'm already in the folder, so I don't have to cd into the folder. So I'm just going to put in the command npm start, and that'll start the development server. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go in and clean up some of those folders, get rid of the things that we don't need, and then we'll be ready to create our child components. We'll do a component folder, components folder. We're going to be doing 3 children folders, or files, I mean, and we're going to do our styling this time in the app style, the global style page, instead of inline styling like we did on the last project. All right. I'm going to go back. This takes a little while to load sometimes, so I'm just going to start cleaning before it's even ready. All right, so let's go into the public folder and let's delete the favicon. Do that first. And let's go to the manifest and delete that. Did I hit it right? Yeah, there it is. Okay. And then we're going to go into the index file and just clean up some of the comments that we don't really need. Just delete some of the comments. And okay. All right. And go ahead and clean up some of this. Oh dear. Okay, clean up all this extra stuff. And we also can get rid of the link to the manifest. And keep going. We can also get rid of the theme color, as you remember, and we can, that's all, that's it. We can get rid of the shortcut icon. Okay. I think we have it pretty much cleaned up the way we want it to be. Okay, and I'm going to save. I'm also going to go into, let's see, what should we do next? We're going to go into source, okay, and we are going to look at the app CSS. That's probably all the logo stuff, so we're going to get rid of that. And we'll be putting in our own styling in this file later. Okay. All right. And then we should go into, let's go into app.js. And let's see, let's get rid of the logo. Okay. And we're going to go in here and we're going to get rid of this stuff in the middle here. We're going to get rid of the entire header. And looks good. We're also going to get rid of the class name of app. Okay, I think we got that one down. All right. And index.js is looking good, except I think we're going to get rid of the service worker. Yeah, we're going to get, because we already deleted it, so we need to get rid of it there. And we could probably delete all this too. Okay, and then we're going to actually delete the logo. Delete. And I think we are done cleaning up. Oh, you know what? Let's go into app.js and actually put a hello or something so we can see it. Or maybe we'll put let's put a forecast or something. Just the forecast. Just do that for now. And then we'll go see what it looks like. Just make sure it's all working. Yep. Okay. So we are done cleaning up. So what we're going to do is we'll begin building our child components when we get back. See you on the next video.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you like the video, do give us a thumbs up and share it. Also check out amazing discounts and offers on our premium courses in the description below.